Well, hello. Today is the day after I completed my very first ORAMM, and I feel like I was ran over by a truck. ORAMM stands for Off-Road Assault on Mount Mitchell. It is one of the biggest races on the East Coast as far as mountain biking goes, and it usually brings some pretty stiff competition. Tinker Juarez, like the legend himself, Tinker, showed up. So it was pretty cool being able to line up next to somebody like him. Before we dive right into the race, I need to set the stage just a little bit. Figured since my training time was going to be limited this year, that signing up for these very strenuous events would force me to make a smarter training plan, and I would force myself to stick to it a little bit better, and train smarter, not harder. In reality, I did ORAMM on less training, but I still raced my heart out. I still completed the event, thank God. That's just not what you're here for, so let's just jump right into the actual event. Let me go through it. I'll try and give you what my first impressions are of this spectacle of an event, and it made me even more excited for next year. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to change for next year. Training included. ORAMM is a 60-mile mountain bike race with around 10,000 feet of climbing. And you really notice every foot towards the end of this event. It is limited to 500 participants, and it is an amazing sight to see 500 mountain bikers roll through downtown Old Fort. And although this is a race that brings some very, very heavy competition, there are people that will just do this event just to try and complete it. And I am going to break this up into 6 segments. Part 1 is going to be Kitsuma 1.
You guys are going to be leaving in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So right off the bat, like not even 2 pedal strokes into the race, since we were all packed in there like sardines, 2 guys clipped handlebars and then proceeded to land directly on my rear derailleur. Luckily, it only bent the thing slightly, so my shifting wasn't perfect for the rest of the race, but it really wasn't bad enough for me to complain about too much. You do get a police escort out of town and to the first climb of the day, which is nice. You are essentially climbing to a trail called Kitsuma, and my goal was to keep my heart rate right at 150 beats a minute. I have a tendency to go way too hard at the beginning of a race, and you cannot do that when you're planning on being on the bike in between 5 to 7 hours. The first climb, I think, is about 5 to 6 miles long, and it's mainly like a paved greenway style climb. I mean, steep enough to get your heart rate up, but it's nothing terrible. And once you get to the first trail, that's where stuff gets really interesting really quick. The race is still so packed together that if one person bobbles on the switchback ladder style climb, you will all be walking.
What about me?
81. Go.
Sorry, buddy.
Too early.
Hey Dylan, I'm going faster walking.
Yeah, right?
Oh, behind you.
Come on.
I will say though, this guy right here rode the climb perfectly. Basically, and this is something that I do recommend if you plan on doing this race next year, he pedaled extremely easy where he could and left a big enough gap to the next guy so that if there was a bobble from said person in front of him, that he would still have a gap and could still ride every switchback. I wasn't complaining. He was doing great. So I have never ridden Kitsuma before, but it was a pretty fun descent. I'd recommend throwing it into a ride up there. It was pretty fun. There's not a whole lot to say about it, nothing super hard, but it's also super easy to go way too fast and overshoot the switchbacks. It's technical enough to keep you on your toes, but I wouldn't say it's anything super challenging. With the first section completed, I was feeling pretty good, and I made my way to section number 2, Star Gap to Jarrett Creek.
Go far left, go far left. Oh, go, 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 go. Go, 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 go. Quick, man, come on. Shout, shout. Far left. Through all y'all when you come back down. I'll be doing.
This section of the race is almost an easier version of what you just did, but longer. I say it's a little bit easier because Star Gap, except for some of the switchbacks, is probably not as steep as the climb in Kitsuma, but you're also not going to have as much traffic and as many people yelling. You're still going to run into it, but it was just a little bit more calmed down by this point. Again, traffic is still backed up to really ride at your own pace. You will more than likely be walking again, but the backside descent that heads to Jarrett is just a little bit of a tighter, slower switchback descent than like what Kitsuma is. It's nothing terrible.
Oh, damn. That would be the problem.
When you hit Jarrett, it is just a deceivingly rolling gravel road, and then you arrive at rest stop number 1. The rest stops were just freaking awesome, and I completely recommend the pickle juice as it was delectable.
That wasn't Gatorade.
No, that's pickle juice. At least you didn't think it was Mountain Dew.
Yeah, right. Woo. That'll make your eyes water. Holy
Great job.
Way to go.
Thanks.
Yes, G.
Bottle.
Now at this point, Keith had caught me, and he was on my wheel, and before Curtis Creek properly starts going uphill, it is a fast paved road, and I really just wanted to keep the pressure on my legs, but when I turned around, I had a pretty large gap to Keith. So I saw that he was eating, and I honestly did not think that much of it. This was the point where he started to realize that his tire was losing air. So he did try to repair it, but the slice was too large, and even after booting the tire, he made it all the way to the top of Curtis Creek with a tube in his tire, and it freaking blew out again. So he had to pull out of the race and ride back down Curtis Creek on a flat tire. Thankfully, he had cush core in, so it didn't completely destroy his rim. But man, I hated that for him because he's been training super hard for this race. He definitely deserved to finish way more than I did. Curtis Creek never really gets steep like the climb in Woods Mountain. But when you have a few hours of racing in your legs, the 9-ish mile climb is pretty freaking relentless. My only advice is just pick a heart rate or a power number that you know you can sustain and do not exceed it. Let people pass you and just keep trucking if you have to. You've still got a long way to go once you reach the top of this climb.
Woo!
There is a rest stop at the top of Curtis Creek, and then you make a left onto the Blue Ridge Parkway for about 5 miles.
Oh my god, I'm gonna die.
This 5 miles seems way longer than the freaking 10 that you just did on the gravel. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it's windy or it's pavement, but the Blue Ridge, I think, is the most mind-numbing part, even with the beautiful views. Once you complete the parkway, you will take a hard left into the biggest slap in the face imaginable. So after you've just finished pedaling uphill for like a couple hours, a hellacious hike-a-bike awaits you to access the top of the infamous Heartbreak Ridge.
Woo!
Once I reached the top of the hike-a-bike, I could feel the twinges of a bad cramp session starting to come on. My arms were tired, my legs were locking down, and now I have a 45-minute descent to deal with. I've ridden Heartbreak a few times before and really enjoy the trail. It's not a bad trail. I recommend if you can get out here and just do a Heartbreak loop. It's pretty fun, and it is an epically long descent. It felt totally different doing this when I started the trail already dying. This forced me to ride completely different than I have ever ridden down Heartbreak. I rode the brakes harder than I have ever rode them before, and it made the trail twice as rough. Honestly, I was just scared to go much faster because I wasn't sure if I could hang on to the handlebars, wasn't sure if my legs were gonna lock down. Yeah, I was just in a different world at that point. now, we have reached the point to where my demons fully came out. I knew that I could keep the cramps at bay as long as I could just keep my legs spinning on the bike, but right in the middle of Heartbreak, I had to get off my bike to hike this section, and cramps were so bad when I got off and started walking. I was walking like an old man to begin with. My legs couldn't straighten because of the cramps, and then my right leg, I don't know what happened, it completely went numb, and I was literally dragging the thing behind me until I reached the summit. Like, if you would have seen me pushing my bike up that hike-a-bike, you would have thought that I ate crap so hard that I broke my leg and I was just dragging it. But upon reaching the summit, the endurance gods decided to smite me even more by sending another wave of cramps.
Cramp action?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, baby.
Good job, dude.
I promise you guys, I have never hurt this bad on a bicycle before. I guess shame on me for not training enough this year. I knew that going into this race, but dude, I did not think the cramps would be near as bad as they were. This is why I love cycling and endurance sports so much. I literally went through every emotion I could during this event. My legs were locked down so bad at this point that I started planning on how I was actually gonna make it off the mountain alive. I stopped worrying about completing the race, and I just wanted to be alive by the time I got down. So, needless to say, I just started to put one foot in front of the other, and the cramping finally started to ease up. And listen, from my research, the vast majority of cramping comes from two things: undertraining and hereditary. So I knew for a fact that bad cramping runs in my family, and my dad cramps whenever he rides these big events like this as well. And I also knew that I didn't train enough for this, so it was inevitable that I would start cramping. I was just hoping it would wait till later. So my legs started to come around, and I kept picking my way down the descent.
Oh, thank you.
Heartbreak runs into Star Gap, and then you take a right, and then at the bottom of Star Gap is the infamous Hecklers. So at this point, with the way that I felt, I knew I would find an easier line down than the A line. I'd love to come back and follow someone down the A line, but I wasn't about to attempt it blind with my legs already falling off.
This where I get off and walk?
You get off the rock and chasing you.
Oh, you can do it, dude.
Roll it all the way. Commit.
I'm not committing this shit.
Good job.
No.
Get off the rock.
I've already got in my pants.
Heel back strop here.
God dang, that feel good. Thank you. Yo! Wow. Oh man.
You need water?
Something besides water.
Besides water?
You have anything with, yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Stronger.
Yeah.
Not too
That's
smooth,
good.
but-
I'll take anything. Now hold on.
Now comes the most brutal part of the race, in my opinion. So you meander around a gravel climb that inevitably takes you back up to hit Kitsuma a second freaking time. If one wasn't enough, twice was terrible. I was running off of fumes at this point, and my only goal was just to finish my first ORAMM. I had to walk half of the climb this go-round because any sort of serious pressure on the pedals would result in my legs rebelling against me.
You wanna go?
Nah, go ahead, buddy.
I'm not gonna make it.
Okay, I'll at least try it.
Try. I'm gonna. I'll stop. Either way.
Woo! That's all I had. I think it's faster to walk than to be in the 52 right now. Almost there, dude. Right? Oh shit.
I crawl my way to the top, do the descent one more time, and then you are home free.
Woo!
I think I had a rush of endorphins knowing that I was about to complete my first ORAMM, because at this point I knew I only had a few miles left and I would freaking walk if I had to. But my legs started to come around and I linked up with a couple dudes from another category, and you know, he pulled hard and we were riding kind of hard, and I finished the race with a good effort, man.
Just because you have an Orbea, get on my wheel and I get you. appreciate the hell out of that. Anytime, man.
There is a lot I want to do differently for next year. Namely, I do not want to be a pack mule. I'm going to plan better. I'm going to send stuff to the aid stations that I can pick up. But I swear I had to have at least 15 pounds worth of gear on me just to be positive I would finish. About the only thing I didn't have was a spare tire. I had everything else. And I really want to go for a good time. I finished in a 6:30 this year, which people tell me isn't bad at all for the first one, but I'm positive I can knock an hour off of that time if my training goes according to plan, all the stars align, no flat tires. You know, a lot has to go into it to do a good time at ORAMM, but I know I've got at least a 5:30 in me. Dylan actually ended up doing a 5:50 for his first ORAMM, so congrats to him. That is awesome for your first ORAMM. Casey finished third in the women's category. I think she came in right over 8 hours or something, and I was super proud of her. She rode the A-line, she rode everything, so she put me to shame. Last thing before you go, Robin's Ride for Hope is in 2 weeks, or by the time this comes out, it's probably going to be a week away. It is a charity ride that I helped put on that is in honor of Keith's mom, Robin, who passed away from ovarian cancer. A lot of you guys know about this ride. And all the proceeds go to creating these amazing butterfly boxes, as we call them, that every new patient receives. So if you can, please sign up, come say hi. If you can't, don't worry about it. Think about donating a little bit. It is a great cause, and I will leave a link down below. Thank you all for letting me share with you my sufferfest of a first ORAMM, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.